Welcome back. This is my little series, Retrospect on the Star Wars Insider magazine. Like I said in the previous episode, I'm doing it for like my own personal project of doing some research of a book I'm writing about some characters in the late 80s, early 90s. Let's just say that Star Wars and that nerd environment's kind of there. I'm also writing another book about another license that I was really into in the late 80s, early 90s, and this helps bring some of that research around as well. But it's more just a retrospect for myself, and maybe I can share this to new Star Wars fans, because there's tons of new Star Wars fans out there. There's Star Wars fans that weren't even born when these magazines were coming out. There are Star Wars fans that weren't born when the prequels came out. We're now in the year 2025, so actually 20 years since Revenge of the Sith. We have 18 and 19-year-old fans that weren't alive when Revenge of the Sith came out, and that is just mind-boggling to me how time has flown and passed, and I do feel old. But the little retrospect of the Star Wars Insider magazine, I have another one here that I'm kind of tootling through to look at. But this was the first issue of Star Wars Insider, issue 23. Issue 22 was still called Lucasfilm Fan Club. It actually was the Star Wars Fan Club up until the release of Return of the Jedi, etc. And then we got the Lucasfilm Fan Club. And the reason they decided to change it from Star Wars to Lucasfilm, I guess, was in the late 80s, there wasn't really any Star Wars. And so they wanted to just focus on Lucasfilm. And that could be Indiana Jones, it could be Radioland Murders, that could be Tucker, Man in His Dream, Howard the Duck. Yes, I mentioned Howard the Duck. But this was the first issue of the Star Wars Insider, because in just the time period of this is George had committed to bringing Star Wars back to the big screen. We were gonna get the prequels. So here is issue 23. It came to my house back in that time. I've covered up my address just because, like I said, I just don't want to make anybody aware of where I used to live. Privacy, and just I don't want anybody going to that old address and bothering the people at that address. I'm not sure why you would do that or go there, but I am a celebrity because I'm making a YouTube video, so there you go. So here's issue. Even calls it the premiere issue of the Star Wars Insider. We've got a little write-up of Wedge, the holiday special. So here we go. On the first page, got a little advertisement for the audio collection of the movies. It looks like it's some audio books of the movie books. And then here we go. We've got the first page of the Star Wars Insider. We're going to do the Star Wars timeline. We got Carrie Fisher. What else do we got? The holiday special. Kenny Baker. Dennis Lawson, Dennis Law, Wedge. And then another article, The Cult of Wedge. So here we go. Next is the Rebel Rumblings. This is the letters that you could write into the fan club. And here we've got Dan Matson writing to us. He was the president of the Star Wars Fan Club, and so he put in this little editorial. As you can see from this issue, the Lucasfilm Fan Club has gone through an important evolution. Welcome to the new official Star Wars Fan Club and its official magazine, the Star Wars Insider. There are many reasons for the name and format change. Countless hours were spent in discussion with Lucasfilm to the appropriate time to change the fan club's name back to its original title. But a little history might prove valuable. The official Star Wars fan club began in 1978, shortly after Star Wars release. Many of its original members, then youngsters and teenagers, now have children of their own who belong to the current club. One of those original fans is the person writing this letter, Mr. Dan Matson. The Star Wars fan club ran successfully for years until approximately 1986, when Lucasfilm decided to close it down, since the Star Wars films had run their course and no new films are in the planning stage. However, in 1987, the Lucasfilm fan club evolved out of the ashes of the original Star Wars fan club. There were many requests to keep the club going because there were many new non-Star Wars projects, namely Willow, Indiana Jones, and The Last Crusade. The club's purpose was to continue to report on progress of the new Star Wars universe while updating fans on Lucasfilm's other ventures. Jumping ahead here, the new Star Wars prequels loom in the distance. George Lucas plans to start the screenplay for Episode 1 by the end of the year. Episode 1 is tentatively scheduled for release 1998. So that's kind of another kind of, we were expecting 1998, and we didn't get that until 1999. So kind of fun how people were still projecting what we might get. In addition to the promise of a new Star Wars adventure, Star Wars has seen a resurgence in popularity with new book releases, touring shows, and countless new quality Star Wars products hitting the marketplace, as you can see in our new catalog. So he definitely wants some of your dollars. For these reasons, we felt it was time to go back to that galaxy far, far away and focus on the creative team and unique characters that brought us the adventures of Luke Skywalker. Yada, yada, yada. The Star Wars Insider will be your best source of information on the new Star Wars prequels. And that's basically why I'm doing this, because this magazine was pretty much from like 97 through 2005 just the place you wanted to just immerse yourself in Star Wars and all the talk and the excitement of those original prequel movies coming out. Yeah, so definitely why I'm also doing this little retrospect as well for myself. And I'm just sharing it with all you youngsters out there, or some fellow fans that remember all this and just kind of want to go down memory lane. Lucasfilm confirmed Star Wars special editions. So in late 94, we knew that we were going to get some special editions. And then here's the Rebel Rumblings. And like I said in my last episode, I kind of like to look to see who's writing these letters. In the last issue, we had a lot of female writers. This one, it looks like there's a lot of male, but it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody thought Star Wars is a male-only fandom. We do have, even on this one, we have a Margaret, and an Adrian, and some other females. But this one seems like it's mostly, it is male heavy this month. But we have a Teresa. So yeah, we just got their little letters. Some of these were good. None of them really caught my eye on too much about what was going on. But it definitely gives me a kind of insight on what people were thinking about. And you got them from all over the world. I mean, here's someone from England. Here's somebody from Canada. Here's somebody from Illinois. So definitely like this person here that's from England. What do they think of Star Wars? The brilliant, excellent, right on the money. I'm talking about the novel Courtship of Princess Leia by Dave Wolverton. Couldn't put it down. What a refreshment. Different approach for portraying the expanding Star Wars universe. Wolverton's writing captures the style and excitement of Star Wars in an excellent manner. His portrayal of major characters is perfect. The interactive banter is on the spot, especially when referring to lines from the movie. He gives us characters and added dimension in reality. The story has the right mix of humor and deadly seriousness that made the Star Wars films a joy. C-3PO tries to understand human behavior. Han and his rival Princess Isidore insult each other and try to get Leia's favor in the face of mortal danger. Reference to Yoda in his youth as an old flirt were wonderful. Let's sidebar for that for a second. Think if we'd gotten the suave Yoda in the prequels. Like, you know, Yoda walks up to one of the young, pretty Jedi Padawans. How you doing? Or would it be more like, how you doing you are? This coupled, reference to Yoda in his youth as an old flirt were wonderful. The unadulterated evil of the dark Force users, the Night Sisters. So we got the first Night Sisters back in that novel. This coupled with an excellent story and the fine concept of a world populated by primitive yet potent Force users makes this a compelling book and one of the best Star Wars novels yet. With this book in hand and John Williams playing in the background, you are in a galaxy far, far away. And that's Harold from Chester, England, and I agree with him. And what's funny is modern day Disney Star Wars took that book and said, we don't think of it as canon anymore. And then they would go on to write another book about how Han and Leia had their honeymoon on a royal Disney starship. Okay, so we've got some of those letters here. Write down in the comments if maybe you want me to read some of these or read more of these. Give me your ideas in the comments. Do you want to hear more of this? There might be people that are listening to this as more of a podcast than a video. So if you want to hear more letters from back in the day, I remember reading these 30 years ago, but I don't really recall what I was reading back then. But what I'm fascinated now is the people from all over the world. And here's one from Reykjavik, Iceland. I don't know why I can't pronounce that, but I was just there a couple of months ago on a layover as I was flying to Ireland. I've been a fan of George Lucas since I was about 8 years old, playing with the Star Wars figures. I'm 19 now, and I got my first magazine last year. Without delay, I ordered from the catalog. It's impossible to get these things in Iceland, and I always wanted the Millennium Falcon model kit, but could not find it until I got the magazine. The first Star Wars movie I saw was Return of the Jedi. It was a thrilling experience to hear the roar of the TIE fighters and listen to John Williams' music. These moments influenced my life. I think that this club is the greatest club in the world. And I have to agree with him completely, Hilmer, if I pronounced your name right. It's just so how much this universe has impacted so many lives. It's just amazing. So, but if you want to hear more of me reading these things, or just leave comments below what you hate, what you don't want. Earth 2 looks like NBC's advertising in here, so the old magazine's getting a nice little full-page ad here for Earth 2. I think I actually watched that back in 1994. Okay, Star Wars news. We've got Dark Horse makes some Star Wars tops. Kevin J. Anderson blazes the signing trail. Samuel J. Anderson will be on the road promoting Jedi Academy Trilogy. The third installment, Champions of the Force, will be out in mid-September. Other new Star Wars books on the horizon include an original hardcover release, The Crystal Star by Vonda McCure and Kathy Tyers, the Teresa Burkra. See issue 21 in paperback, both out in November. And I think I might have actually met Kevin J. Anderson right after this, probably as early as 95, 96. He was at a Barnes & Noble signing, and that was the first time I met Kevin J. Anderson. See the Japanese Star Wars exhibit. Disneyland opening a new Indiana Adventure ride. Temple of the Forbidden Eye. Sidebar here, this is kind of important to me because I didn't get to ride this ride until 2008. That was the first time I rode that ride, was in 2008, and to think and be reminded that it was actually in the planning stage in 1995, 94, 95. If you thought you saw it all with Star Wars, think again. Lucasfilm's newest collaboration with the world's most famous theme park opens in 1995. The Temple of the Forbidden Eye at Disneyland in Anaheim is a new Indiana Jones ride, totally unlike the Indiana Jones stunt spectacular at Disney World, which I got to see for the first time in 2004. And the Indiana Jones et le Temple de Peril at Euro Disney. Disney officials promised the new ride would redefine theme park attractions. Just as the Star Wars Tours did years ago, developers of the Temple of the Forbidden Eye waited until technology reached a point where they could create a fast-paced adventure that feels convincingly out of control to the audience. The Temple of the Forbidden Eye is loosely based on the South American temple scene in the opening sequence to Raiders of the Lost Ark, complete with the booby traps and the rolling boulders. Riders may take their way through the temple in old, unreliable transport vehicles. Each vehicle has different characteristics that affect the nature of the ride, so it's possible to have a different experience each time you ride, and I would agree with that even as it is currently. They've made some changes. I can tell you that that ride was mind-boggling and just totally intense when we rode it in 2008. When I went back a few years later and rode it again, it seemed like they kind of toned it down. And in the last few years, I've ridden it every time I've gone back to Disneyland, which was in 2017, 2018, 2021, and 2022. 2022 was the last time I've been at Disneyland, and it just seems like they've kind of slowed it down. Like, it's not as intense. And it's sad because there was times when that boulder was coming at you. Disney show director Skip Lynch promises you will feel as you're in jeopardy. The feeling that something could go wrong at any moment is always present. Those wanting to get a sneak peek of the new ride can see the exterior of the temple and the excavation site while riding Disney's Jungle Cruise. So that's kind of brings back some memories I don't think I remember. But just to realize that one of my favorite Disneyland rides was actually thought about that far back. Here's another ad for a Star Wars plate. Like I said in my last episode, I do not understand plate collectors. I apologize. So here we have some Lucasfilm's latest, just a little bit of update on productions of like Radioland Murders, some licensing, THX notes. It was in about this time, 94, 95. I remember the theaters were switching over to the THX sound, and there was a lot of hype about that. And there was only like 2 theaters here in Colorado that had it at the time. So some of that, and then some more ads of the Star Wars chess set. I will say that when I saw this, I wanted this, but this is one of those, you know, Danbury mints kind of things that you just, if you do the math, it will be literally $1 million before you get the whole set. I exaggerate, of course, but here, if you look, please accept my check consisting of 32 Peter playing pieces and custom crafted chessboard. Each piece is $20. So 20 times 32, folks. Yeah, this was not in my price range as a college student living in Colorado, going to the University of Colorado, and trying to buy Star Wars toys and collectibles and eat, you know, ramen noodles and tacos from Taco Bell, when Taco Bell tacos were still 39 cents. 39 cents, people, on special nights like Thursday nights. So yeah, never had that, but they're very similar to the pewter pieces that I mentioned before that I did buy. Here's the radio dramatization ad, which is cool. Let's see, what do we got here? Here's some articles about what's going on in the Dark Horse comics. Giving you an update on that. Apologize if there's a glare. I tried to angle this. Maybe I should do that. How about that? I can maybe just realized how there might be a glare on the magazine. I apologize. LucasArts articles. So if you had any curiosity about what was going on in the games back in the day. X-Wing. Here is something that I stared at quite often, and this kind of brings back memories too, as the timeline. This was the official timeline, and they were trying to stick it into what was going on in the books and comic books and all the expanded universe we'd get throughout the 90s. Stuff that would actually be erased from canon when Disney bought Star Wars. So you had Star Wars, Empire, and Jedi. You had the Marvel droids here. Here's the Dark Lord of the Sith and the Tales of the Jedi comic book series. Splinter of the Mind's Eye was one of the very first novelizations that expanded the Star Wars story. But then just so kind of bring back memories. Sorry, I just had a little bit of a memory burp there, I guess. Thinking about looking at this again, trying to figure out, okay, the Truce at Baccarat, and then the Heir to the Empire and the Dark Force and the Last Command books were 10 years after Star Wars. Then you had the X-Wing novels and the Courtship of Princess Leia that happened at 8+8. And the Hand of Thrawn is at +19. So yeah, I just remember staring at this, trying to get an idea of the universe that we had at the time. And looking back at this now, it seems so simple. There's just not a lot there. Small is another word. It seems like it was so small, but nowadays it's so expansive. And then if you try to take in Legends versus Disney canon and so forth, funny how much Disney's borrowed from all this anyways. But then we've got some Q&A back here. Timeline Q&A. Here's a good question. Is like talking about, you two have been described as the Star Wars continuity czars. How do you keep track of Star Wars universe? And this is the insider in-depth answers about Star Wars from the production editor Sue Rostani and continuity editor Alan Kosh. Am I saying that correctly? We have a tremendous amount of reference material, including the original screenplays, the films, the West End games, books, the guide to the Star Wars universe, and our in-house timeline, which included titles and synopses of all published material. As new works and published, we update an in-house extension of the guide, adding new characters, terms, events. We also have access to the memory banks of other Star Wars professionals for those rare occasions when we are stumped. And I would say this is long before we ever saw, like, say, Wikipedia or had Gus Lopez or any of those other mega Star Wars fans starting to put their own databases online. What's gospel and what isn't? Gospel, or canon as we refer to it, includes the screenplays, the films, the radio dramas, and the novelizations. These works spin out of George Lucas's original stories. The rest are created by other writers. However, between us, we've read everything, and much of it is taken into account. It's all overall continuity. The entire catalog of published works comprises a vast history, with many offshoots, variations, tangents, like any other well-developed mythology. So yeah, here we got some of those good questions, and then another little prize for Star Wars Galaxy. Whoops. And then this is the debut of the new Jawa Trader. Basically, your place for Star Wars collectibles and purchasing. The Jawa Trader. Having trouble here with the pages. Trying not to get them all fingerprinted up by wearing my little white gloves. But as we saw in previous Lucasfilm Fan Club catalog, we start off with some Indiana Jones posters, and then we move into some new Star Wars products. And I remember when these books came out, I probably learned about them from this catalog, but I did not buy them from this catalog. I went down to B. Dalton Books at the local mall, and I bought all of them. And I remember buying, I believe, this Tomart's Parts Guide off of maybe QVC, I think. I can't remember. I do have this Millennium Falcon. It might still be in a box somewhere, of a novelization. Those are probably one of the few novelizations I have on cassette or ever bought audio. And the reason was I was going to do a road trip back home one year after college, and I wanted to listen to them in the car. And then here's all the posters. I don't know if anybody remembers the big fad back in the 90s of these posters where you had to like cross your eyes and look through the poster and you would see another image. More of the trading cards, watches, underwear, plates, lightsabers, or what we got as lightsabers back in the 90s. This was long before we ever got the first FX lightsabers in the early 2000s. Some vinyl stuff, some masks, even a Star Wars lava lamp. Is that what that is? The dome light, Darth Vader dome light. Hold Darth Vader in the palm of your hands when you purchase this unusual dome light. When you spin Vader around, the cold blue rays of darkness shine forth, giving you the power to crush the rebellion. Okay, there we go. Here's the models again. Pretty much the same as last issue. The pewters, pretty much the same as last issue. West End games and all the role-playing stuff, pretty much the same as last issue. More Micro Machines. And as you notice, no old Kenner action figures. They must have sold out of them all. Missed them. Darn. Then some other advertisements for Dark Horse Comics. Here is now some interviews. Life After Leia. And a nice little article there. Maybe I'll do a sidebar and read this for an additional podcast listening if you want me to. Write the comments down below. Is that something you'd even be interested in? That retrospective is seeing how the world was 30 years ago. And then here's an article about the Star Wars Holiday Special. The World of Indiana Jones was coming to West End Games. Yeah. That article might be worth reading to everyone. Especially how much, whether you love it or hate it, this was a cultural, milestone. And how funny how it came to be. And I will tell you, I remember watching this on television as a 6-year-old, 7-year-old kid, and thinking it was the coolest thing ever because it had the characters from my favorite movie of all time, and we didn't realize how bad it was until we grew up and saw it later. And it's funny to see and this is by John Bradley Snyder. And then we've got that article, and then we have the Kenny Baker interview. And that's quite a few pages. An ad for for the TIE Fighter game. And then here's the Dennis Lawson interview. Mr. Wedge. And the Cult of Wedge. And it's true. Wedge is almost as popular as Luke Skywalker, believe it or not. People love Wedge. Here's Scouting the Galaxy, which was an article that Steve Sansweet started doing for the Insider, talking about all the weird and unique collectibles out there in the world. I will say I was first introduced to Steve Sansweet on an old FX TV show on cable television about super collectors, and I will tell you, I unfortunately and failed miserably tried to be the next Steve Sansweet. I wanted to buy everything. I wanted to have that super collection. I bought the Dixie cups. I bought the toilet paper, the toothpaste holder, everything. And then I realized I just could not financially do it. So I had to make a decision. And in 1996, I just stuck with collecting the action figures. And that was pretty much all I was buying at that time, was the action figures. Here we still have some classifieds. And then the galactic sightings of more stuff to keep your eye out for. And then Star Wars was getting into the fine art prints. I don't think I ever really looked at this seriously back in the day. Mainly probably because I don't see a price on it, so I'm pretty sure it was going to be expensive. And it only had an edition size of 500. So I probably didn't even look into it because I figured I probably couldn't afford it. And then the 10 cards, full advertisement on the back there. That was the first issue of Star Wars Insider. So leave a comment down below if you have any questions. Do you want me to read some of these articles? Maybe in a more dedicated podcast environment, if you want to kind of go down memory lane with me. I don't know if other Star Wars fans are as sentimental or nostalgic about doing what this project is doing for me, and that's just to go down memory lane of Star Wars when I was younger. This is 1994, so I was 22 years old back when these magazines were coming out. So I was just in college, about to graduate college. I was a little behind. I took a year off and stuff like that. But college kid, 20 to 22 years old, and this just brings back memories. So if you want to go down that memory lane with me, leave a comment, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.